is something that definitely demonstrates the difficulties under which security services are working, to be honest with you, because it's quite common. It has emerged as a common theme in the profile of jihadists that can conduct various kinds of different attacks across Europe, that they may have been known to the police for petty crime, drug dealing, stuff that's totally unrelated to terror activity, have no signs of being radical or being involved in radical politics, or even often, actually, even though the connections between the two things are much more complex, but even are not overtly religiously very practicing or whatever, and then they go out and they commit a terror attack. This was the profile of the Nice attacker who did the Bastille Day attacks in Nice. I mean, this confronts the security services with a total nightmare, because there's no indication that they should be following or monitoring an individual like this.
So how did they go in that case from petty crime to committing a terror attack?
Well, that's the thing. There is no magical formula that enables us to predict that. I mean, in my research and looking into biographies of jihadists in France, there's no simple one route into jihadism, right? Often jihadists in France, when this is a common theme across the Middle East, the rest of Western Europe, North America even, are often really well educated and from quite high social class backgrounds. So there just is this is why security forces are in such a difficult position, because there is just no magic formula that you can follow to pinpoint even who's likely to radicalize and get involved in such an attack. I mean, it's really difficult. And it's also worth saying, in fact, actually, that in France, a very well-known French scholar, Olivier Roy, has done research that's shown there's at least 10 times more French Muslims that serve the French Republic in the security services than have ever been identified as possible radical jihadists. So it is also still quite a rare phenomenon, and one that's extremely diverse, that makes the policing of it really difficult.
Well, let's just go back, for example, to the 2015 Charlie Hebdo attack. What did you make of France's response to the aftermath of that?
In terms of their security response?
In terms of their security response, yes.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of issues raised in 2015 after the Charlie Hebdo attack about the lack of cooperation between French security services. So you had quite a fragmented setup of institutions. Some work has been done to solve some of those communication problems. Obviously, as jihadism has become much more critical as a agenda item in the security field with the rise of ISIS and things like that, France definitely has taken the front foot in providing resources, manpower to that. But France still has got a massive problem, and this is something that we haven't seen here, luckily. Otherwise, the death toll would be much higher. France has got serious problems of internal insecurity in terms of the availability of heavy weapons. So if we look at the gangland shootings in Marseille, robberies in Paris, they're often carried out with a Kalashnikov assault rifle, which you can purchase in most French cities for around €600. This is something that France still hasn't tackled, and still hasn't tackled those organised crime networks, which did enable the Charlie Hebdo attackers to get their hands on such heavy-grade military weapons that made it such a deadly attack. I mean, we can only imagine if this individual, right, had those connections and had got something like a Kalashnikov, we would be talking about, multiple fatalities here. And that's something I think France still has to really get a grip on.
I just wanted to focus on the sort of ideological aspect of this. Before this attack happened, in the several weeks leading up to it in France, the debate has been really intensifying over freedom of speech and secularism here. Do you think that this poses a sort of all or nothing proposition to French Muslims, or to some French Muslims, that either you choose the values of one's country or one's faith? And do you think that this sort of fundamental dissonance can ever really be resolved?
Well, I think it's already been resolved, actually. I think all you need to do is walk around any French city and see the large numbers of second or third generation people of a Muslim background who are very happy living in France, who love France as a country, who serve in its security services, who open businesses, who provide important social functions, who serve in the police force, in the bureaucracies. I don't see this clash of values as actually existing in the real world. I think it's something that exists in intellectual circles on both sides of the spectrum, in terms of the pro-secularism European intellectuals and the pro-totalitarian sort of Islamo-fascist jihadist ideologues. want to portray not just France, actually, this isn't just a French issue, but the presence of Muslims in non-Muslim countries as some sort of inherent problem, which causes inherent discord. We just don't see that. I mean, if we take, there are no statistics, but if we take a sort of conservative estimate that there are 6 million Muslims in France, if there was such a fundamental problem between French and Muslim values, we would see a lot more social conflict than we're seeing currently.
OK, Joseph Downing, I'm afraid we've run out of time, but thank you very much for that. Joseph Downing there speaking to us from London.